welcome back to the ECLAM channel. This is the second in a series of videos on how to prepare and submit your credentials application. In this video, I'm going to explain how you can document your working experience during your residency. Please feel free to leave any comments in the boxes below or send me an email. Form 2 of the application is where you show how you've gained practical day-to-day skills and knowledge during your supervised residency period, which of course must have been at least 36 months. You must have worked in lab animal medicine for an equivalent of 60% of a full-time post during this time. If there were any gaps in your training, these must be shown in your CV and should also have been communicated to us via your annual reports as a resident. To help see how to fill out the forms, let me introduce you to Ronald Scott. Ron used to be one of the personas who helped us develop our new website, and now he's ready to submit his credentials application. Ron finished an alternate route residency just recently after several years in private practice and a PhD, and he now works as the designated vet in a vaccine company in Scotland. He's already completed Form 1, the basic background information, and his CV, and is ready to complete Form 2. Here's the first page of Ron's CV. As you can see, he graduated from veterinary school at the University of Glasgow in 2005. He did an internship for the first year in a mixed practice, and then he got a job in another mixed practice where he stayed for 8 years until 2014. In 2014, he decided to return to the University of Glasgow to get a PhD in virology, and at the same time, within a few weeks, he realized that he wanted to become an ECLAM resident via the alternate route as well. He did a research project in ferret coronaviruses, involving in vivo studies of viral transmission in neonates. This was only 80%, and the other 20% of his time he picked up a one-day-a-week part-time job doing clinical veterinary work for the same university in the Department of Chemistry. This involved the usual things: routine visits, diagnosis, health monitoring, doing a bit of personnel training on the side. And then in September 2019, he had finished his PhD, and he got a job with the Scottish Vaccine Development Company. Let's take a look at Form 2 so that we can see how Ron has to fill this form out. In Table 2.1, you first give a summary table of all your experience in veterinary medicine during your residency. As you know, you need a total of at least 36 months. For work other than during residency, we have a way of calculating ratios to determine how much of that time will count towards your residency time. Then you complete a Form 2.1 for each of the positions that you listed in the first summary table. Work experience can broadly be classified into 3 different types. 1, as a work that you do as a laboratory animal veterinarian. The second type of work is for postgraduate studies when you are using lab animals. And the third type is for employment in other areas such as private practice, and things which do not involve working with laboratory animals directly. We recognize there's a diversity in our specialty. We try to be as flexible as we possibly can in considering your work experience, while remaining firm in the expectation that you really have had the opportunity to become an expert during your residency. Let's see how to fill out these tables with Ron's CV next to how he'll fill out Form 2 in Table 2.1. On the right, we have Ron's CV that we looked at before, and over here on the left, we have a Form 2 in the first summary table that he needs to fill out in order to claim the 36 months. From his CV, as you remember, from September 2014 until August 2019, total of 5 years, he worked as a PhD student for 80% of the time. Over here then, we put down from the same period of time, September 2014 to August 2019, a period of 60 months at 80% time, and it's a ratio of 1 to 2 because he was doing a research project that it directly involved working with laboratory animals. So you multiply that out, and that's a total of 24 months of experience. Now let's look at the job that he held at the same time, the one-day-a-week job in the Department of Chemistry. Over here in his resume, that was September 2014 to August 2019, same period of time, but now he was doing clinical veterinary work and doing clinical care of the animals in the Department of Chemistry. Even though it was only 20% time, this was direct, one-to-one, hands-on lab animal medicine. And so in the table, we give him 60 months at 20% time at a one-to-one ratio, so he gets a total of 12 months for that. When he finished there and finished his PhD and went to work for the vaccine company in September 2019, he's now therefore completed a total of 12 months of a full-time job, again as a lab animal vet, so he has gained an additional 12 months of experience. So all told, he has a total of 48 months. Let's move on now to Form 2.1, which Ron has to fill out for each of the position descriptions that he listed in the table above. He also needs to have the person who supervised him in those positions either sign this form or email a letter to me that verifies the information. Okay, so here is his first position, position 2.1 from the table on the previous page, in the Department of Virology, where he was a PhD student for 80% time, remember. It was a research project in ferret coronaviruses, and he's added a bit more information here to point out that he was doing studies of viral transmission that involved managing a breeding colony, doing IV viral infusions, collecting samples, doing necropsy, histopathology, virus isolation, and RT-PCR. And again, it was an 80% position for a total of 5 years. The table that we see here is the same one that you already filled out when you did your residency application, at least those of you who are alternate route residents. So you should be familiar with these estimations. This is a post hoc estimation of the amount of time that Ron spent in each of these areas, and of course it has to add up to 100%. He then has to indicate the species that he worked with and the approximate number of animals of each of the species. Again, you'll recognize this from your residency application because it lists the species that we require you have experience with. In the case of Ron's research project, he only worked with ferrets. This is where Ron's supervisor will sign and fill out the information. Let's move on to position 2.2, which was the job he held at the same time, the one-day-a-week job as a clinical veterinary surgeon in the Department of Chemistry, again doing weekly routine things. This was a 20% job for 5 years. This time the distribution of his responsibilities is slightly different. Obviously he was doing mostly clinical care, but he was also doing some teaching and a little bit of independent study, and he got to go to a conference once in a while. So the total there is again 100%. Moving on to the next page where we see the species distribution, we can see that in his Department of Chemistry job, he worked with mice, about 150 mice, about 10 rats. There were some rabbits there, and there was a fish room. And again, his immediate supervisor would need to sign. A common question we get is how much do you need to document on Form 2 if, for example, you went somewhere for a few weeks to gain more experience with a non-mammalian species that you don't have at your regular facility? You and your director and local supervisors are responsible for ensuring that you gained enough experience with these species to be considered a newly qualified specialist. For some people, this might be achievable in just a couple of weeks, say in a zebrafish facility. For others, you and your advisors may determine that you need additional experience in order to be confident in your abilities. But of course, as veterinarians, we have an extremely broad education. We're prepared to deal with all kinds of animals except people. Part of the challenge and part of the attraction of being a lab animal vet is learning to manage different species in a research setting. 30 years ago, hardly anybody knew how to care for zebrafish, or naked mole rats, or miniature swine, let alone understand their diseases and provide for their welfare. Who knows what might be next? Perhaps in a few years we'll be housing these guys for coronavirus research. So let's take a quick look back at what we've done. We've seen how on Form 2 you first construct a table that is a summary of all the experience you've gained during your residency, with one position on each line of the table. That translates then into a separate Form 2.1 or position description for each one of the jobs that you listed in your table. In the position description, you give a lot more information about what you learned during your residency, the kind of activities that you did, and the number of species that you worked with. This, together with your CV, provides an overlapping and complementary view of what you've been doing since you graduated from veterinary school. We can go back through the CV, for example, in Ron's case, to pick up his significant experience with farm animal species, and then combine that with evidence of all of the other work that he's done since he graduated. It's really the easiest way we can think of to really get a good, accurate summary of the work experience that you've gained. Well, we've come to the end of another video. I'd like to thank you for sticking with me for this long. I hope it's been instructive and useful for you. If not, you know where to find me. I'll see you in the next video. Anybody know what to feed a pangolin?